The raven that came on a dark night. The air was cold. On a dark December night, the wind howled outside, unabashed and unrelenting. The sky was starless. The night had spread itself like a black shroud over everything. In a small room, a faint candlelight flickered, desperately trying to pierce through the darkness. A young man sat at a desk cluttered with worn-out books, consumed by an endless grief. His eyes wandered across the pages, but his mind was lost elsewhere. His thoughts were filled with the memory of Lenore, the woman he had lost. Her face, once a heavenly light to him, now existed only in his memories. Her name escaped his lips like a prayer. The silent room seemed to echo with it. Outside, the wind's wail shifted into a tapping, a light, persistent knocking at the door. The young man sat up with a start. His heart pounded. How could there be a sound on such a still night? Perhaps it was the wind. He muttered to himself, "It is only a visitor, a late traveler, nothing more." But the explanation did little to calm his restless heart. He approached the door and spoke in a hoarse voice. "Who's there?" Silence. No answer. When he opened the door, there was nothing but an empty void. The cold wind hit his face. For a moment he felt as though something unseen was watching him, but there was no one. Slowly he shut the door and returned to his place. The tapping returned, this time at the window. Uneasy, the young man approached the curtains, his heart racing. When he pulled them back, a shadow slipped into the room. Its wings were black and sharp as the night itself, and its eyes glimmered with piercing light. It was a raven. The bird flew across the room and perched on the bust above the door, unmoving, as though it had claimed a throne. The young man stared at it in shock. This creature was no ordinary bird. Its presence carried something otherworldly, inexplicable. Tilting his head slightly, he spoke to the raven. "What do you seek here, strange bird? Who sent you?" The raven stared back silently, and then, in a deep, echoing voice, it answered, "Nevermore." The word reverberated in the young man's mind, bouncing off the dark walls. At first, he dismissed it as coincidence. A meaningless word, he thought, but he asked again, "What is your name? Where have you come from?" The raven repeated, "Nevermore." A chill settled over the young man's heart. This bird could not be ordinary. It was as if it understood his grief, as if it were a judge passing sentence on the pain of losing Lenore. He trembled as he whispered, "And Lenore? Will Lenore return to me?" The raven's eyes seemed to deepen, as though they could peer into the young man's very soul. And then it spoke again. "Nevermore." The word struck him like lightning. Tears welled up in his eyes and his hands shook. He knew Lenore would never return, but hearing the raven give voice to his deepest despair was unbearable. He rose to his feet, his voice cracking. "Have you come to torment me, blackbird? Is it your purpose to deepen my sorrow?" But the raven did not move. It sat silently on the bust, a dark statue gazing at the young man. The young man fell to his knees, his strength drained. The raven's presence consumed the last shreds of his hope. The night dragged on, but the young man could not sleep. The dark room felt as though it were filled with the raven's soul. Its presence echoed through his mind, draping everything in shadow. That room had become not only the young man's prison, but the tomb of his despair. The raven never left the bust, and the young man never left the room. From that night on, the two silent figures shared the same dark fate, forever bound as shadows of one another.